She was 8 months pregnant. He threw her into a blizzard. She climbed into his enemy's car. This is Sarah Castellari, 28 years old, married to one of Chicago's most dangerous men, about to make a choice that will destroy everything she knows. 3 hours ago, her husband Jimmy stormed into their penthouse and said 4 words: "Pack a bag. You're leaving." She refused. He didn't listen. The streets were frozen. Her phone was dead. Her baby was kicking. And Sarah was dying in the snow. Then headlights appeared. Not a friend. Not a stranger. Logan Genovs. The man whose brother Jimmy killed. The man who should want Sarah dead. Instead, he opened the door and offered his hand. What Sarah didn't know, the threat her husband believed in, didn't exist. The intelligence that made Jimmy abandon her? Fabricated. The person who orchestrated everything? Someone Jimmy trusted with his life. In 3 hours, they'll meet in a warehouse. Guns will be drawn. The truth will come out. And 3 families will never be the same. What happened next changed everything. We would like to beg a favor. We have been dropping powerful videos daily, and we want you to help us grow by subscribing to our channel right now. Thank you for helping us grow. Drop your country and the time in the comments below. I love seeing this community span across the globe. Now let's return back to our character. 3 hours earlier, the penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan had been warm, safe. Everything Jimmy Castellari had built his empire to protect. Sarah sat at their dining table, nursery catalogs spread before her like battle plans. At 28, 8 months pregnant, she glowed with that peculiar light of impending motherhood, equal parts exhaustion and joy. Her hand absently traced circles on her belly as she compared crib designs, completely absorbed. She didn't hear Jimmy enter. Didn't notice the tension radiating from him like heat from a furnace until his shadow fell across her papers. Pack a bag. You're leaving. Tonight. The words landed like a death sentence. Sarah looked up slowly, taking in her husband's appearance. Jimmy Castellari, 6'2", built like a boxer, with dark eyes that could freeze men twice his size, stood before her transformed. His jaw was locked tight enough to crack teeth. His knuckles were white where they gripped the back of a chair. This wasn't the man who'd held her last night, whispering promises to their unborn child. This was the crime lord. The killer. The man Chicago whispered about in fearful tones. Jimmy, what are you talking about? The Genovs family. His voice could have chilled wine. They know about the baby. Marcus intercepted communications. They're planning to use you as leverage. Sarah's hand moved protectively to her stomach. So we increase security. We. No. The word was absolute. Final. I won't let them use you against me. Marcus is prepping the safe house upstate. You leave in 20 minutes. Without you. Without me. The silence stretched between them like a chasm opening in the earth. Sarah rose slowly, one hand braced on the table, the other still cradling her belly. Even pregnant, even exhausted, she had a spine of steel that Jimmy both loved and occasionally feared. I'm not going anywhere without you, she said, each word deliberate. What followed was their worst fight in 5 years of marriage. Jimmy's voice rose to levels she'd never heard, accusing her of not understanding the life they lived. This isn't some romantic movie, Sarah. These people don't negotiate. They don't show mercy. If they get their hands on you, on our baby, then we face them together. Sarah's voice cracked. That's what marriage means, Jimmy. That's what family means. Or did you forget that when you put a ring on my finger? I didn't forget anything. His eyes were black ice. I'm protecting what's mine. I'm not property to be locked away. You're my wife. You're carrying my child. And you will do what I say." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Sarah stared at him, tears building but refusing to fall. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but it cut deeper than any scream. "I don't recognize you right now." Jimmy turned away, pulling out his phone. "Marcus, bring the car around. She's ready." "Jimmy, don't do this. It's already done." Marcus arrived with 2 soldiers. Large men with dead eyes and expensive suits. They looked uncomfortable as Sarah backed away from them, hands raised in disbelief. "You're really doing this? You're having them physically remove me?" Jimmy couldn't meet her eyes. "It's for your own good." The elevator ride down was silent except for Sarah's quiet sobbing. The soldiers stared at the floor, human beings trapped in an inhuman situation. Marcus kept glancing at Sarah's reflection in the polished doors, his jaw working like he wanted to say something but couldn't. They reached the parking garage. The storm outside howled like a living thing, wind rattling the structure's concrete bones. "Mrs. Castellari," Marcus said gently, "the car is just..." But Sarah saw her moment. A distraction, one of the soldiers checking his phone, Marcus turning toward a sound. She moved, faster than anyone expected a woman 8 months pregnant could move, slipping between parked cars and into the shadows. "Mrs. Castellari." She kept moving, driven by fury and heartbreak, until she found a service exit. The door opened onto hell. The blizzard hit Sarah like a physical blow. Wind tore at her coat, snow blinded her within seconds, and the cold sank teeth into her bones. Stupid. This was so stupid. But she couldn't go back. Couldn't face those soldiers, that car, the safe house prison where Jimmy would lock her away from the life they'd built together. Where he'd lock away their love behind walls of protection that felt more like abandonment. Sarah stumbled forward, each step an agony. The baby kicked, hard, insistent, as if asking what the hell her mother was thinking. "Fair question." "I know, sweetie," Sarah whispered through chattering teeth. "Mama's an idiot. But Daddy's worse." Her phone was dead. No surprise. She'd forgotten to charge it, distracted by nursery planning and the foolish belief that her evening would be normal. That her husband wouldn't turn into a stranger and throw her out of their home. The streets of Chicago were empty, transformed by the storm into an Arctic wasteland. Sarah recognized nothing. The cold was getting worse, seeping through her coat like water through paper. Her fingers were numb. Her face felt frozen. The baby kicked again, weaker this time. Fear shot through Sarah's heart, sharper than any cold. "No. No, no, no. Stay with me, baby. Please stay with me." She needed to find shelter. A store, a restaurant, anything. But everything was closed, locked against the storm. She tried doors with numb hands, pounded on windows with fists she could barely feel. Nothing. Sarah sank against a building wall, the small overhang providing pitiful protection. She wrapped both arms around her belly, trying to share what little warmth she had left. "I'm sorry," she whispered. To the baby. To herself. To the life she'd thought they'd have. "I'm so sorry." That's when the headlights appeared. A black SUV, moving slowly through the storm like a shark through dark water. Sarah's first instinct was relief. Someone who could help. Her second instinct was terror. In their world, strangers in expensive vehicles weren't good Samaritans. The SUV stopped beside her. The passenger window rolled down with a soft electronic hum, and warm air spilled out like a promise of paradise. The driver leaned across the seat, and Sarah's heart stopped. Logan Genovs. She'd seen his photograph in Jimmy's files. Had heard the stories whispered by soldiers when they thought she wasn't listening. Logan Genovs, silver-haired, 42 years old, with a reputation for calculated violence that made even Jimmy Castellari cautious. The man whose brother Jimmy had killed in a territory dispute 5 years ago. The man who'd sworn revenge. The man who should want Sarah dead just for bearing Jimmy's name. "Mrs. Castellari," Logan said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "You're going to die out here. Let me help you." Every instinct Sarah possessed screamed danger. This was the enemy. The rival. The man who'd built his own empire on the ashes of their family war. But the baby kicked again. Softer, weaker, and Sarah realized she wasn't making decisions for just herself anymore. She climbed into the SUV. The heat inside was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah gasped, her frozen body revolting against the sudden warmth. Logan reached into the back seat and produced a thick blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders with movements that were almost courtly. "There's hot tea in the thermos," he said, nodding toward the cup holder. "No drugs, no poison. Just tea. You need to warm up slowly." Sarah stared at him, trying to reconcile this courteous stranger with the monster from Jimmy's stories. "Why are you helping me?" Logan's expression was unreadable. "Because whatever your husband believes, I don't make war on pregnant women." He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Jimmy, I have your wife. She's safe." Sarah could hear Jimmy's voice through the phone, loud and sharp with panic that bled into rage. Logan held the device away from his ear, letting Jimmy's fury fill the warm interior of the SUV. "Kill you myself, Logan. I swear to God." "Are you finished?" Logan's voice remained calm. "Good. Because we need to talk about who's really trying to kill your family." Silence on the other end. Sarah could picture Jimmy's face, the confusion warring with suspicion, the paranoia that had driven him to abandon her now working in overdrive. "What are you talking about?" "The intelligence you received about my family threatening Sarah, it's fabricated." Logan glanced at Sarah, his expression grave. "I would never target a pregnant woman. We have rules, Jimmy. Even in our world, we have rules. Someone wants you to believe I'm your enemy right now. Someone close to you." Sarah's mind raced. Who would do this? Logan's jaw tightened. "Your husband's cousin, Julian Castellari. He's been working with the Bratva syndicate, feeding Jimmy false information for the past 6 months." The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. Julian, Jimmy's cousin, his right hand, the man who'd stood beside Jimmy at their wedding and promised to protect their family. Julian, who'd been planning the baby's christening with them just last week. "That's impossible," Sarah whispered. "I wish it were." Logan pulled a tablet from the center console, tapping through files. "These are bank transfers. $500,000 from a Bratva shell company to Julian's offshore account. These are recordings of phone calls between Julian and Alexei Volkov." He played one. Julian's voice, distinctive with its slight rasp, filled the car. "Needs to believe the Janov's family is coming for his wife and kid. Make him paranoid. Make him push her away. Once she's gone, once the heir is eliminated, the Bratva can move on Jimmy. And I'll be positioned to take over what's left." Sarah felt sick. "He's trying to kill the baby? He's trying to kill your entire family." Logan's voice was cold now, the courtly gentleman replaced by the crime lord underneath. "The Bratva wants Jimmy's territory. Julian wants Jimmy's empire. And you and that child are obstacles to both." On the phone, Jimmy had gone silent. When he spoke again, his voice was hollow. "Where are you?" "Old warehouse on the south side. The one we used for the treaty talks back in 18. Logan paused. "Bring Julian. Tell him you want to discuss the Janov situation. Don't let him know Sarah's alive. Don't let him suspect anything. If you're lying..." Then you can kill me yourself. Logan's eyes met Sarah's. But I think your wife has had enough of men making decisions about her life. Maybe you should ask what she wants. Jimmy's voice changed, became smaller somehow. Sarah, are you there? Sarah took the phone with shaking hands. I'm here. Are you hurt? Is the baby? We're fine. No thanks to you. The silence stretched. Sarah, I was trying to protect you. By throwing me out into a blizzard? By not trusting me enough to stand beside you. Her voice cracked. You made me feel like property, Jimmy. Like something to be locked away in a vault. That's not. We're going to this warehouse, Sarah interrupted. We're going to hear what Logan has to say. And then we're going to deal with Julian. But after that, she took a shaking breath. After that, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about what marriage actually means. She hung up before Jimmy could respond. Logan raised an eyebrow. Feel better? Not even a little bit. Good. He started the engine. Righteous anger will keep you warm. You're going to need it. The warehouse squatted on the south side like a forgotten monument to Chicago's industrial past. Snow had transformed it into something from a Gothic novel, all dark windows and skeletal steel, wrapped in white. Logan pulled the SUV inside through a side entrance. The interior was vast and cold, lit by portable LED work lights that cast harsh shadows across empty space. In the center, someone had set up a folding table and chairs, like a boardroom meeting relocated to purgatory. Dramatic, Sarah observed. I find neutral ground helps keep everyone from shooting each other. Logan helped her from the vehicle, his hand steady under her elbow. Though I make no promises with your husband. They didn't have to wait long. Another vehicle pulled in, Jimmy's armored Mercedes, black and ominous. Two men emerged first, soldiers checking sightlines and exits. Then Jimmy himself. He looked worse than Sarah had ever seen him. His clothes were disheveled, his face haggard. When his eyes found Sarah, the relief that flooded across his features was so profound it was almost painful to witness. Sarah, don't. She held up a hand. Not yet. Another car arrived, Julian's Range Rover, navy blue and expensive. Julian emerged looking confused, glancing between Logan and Jimmy with the expression of a man who'd walked into the wrong movie. What's going on? You said emergency meeting about the Genovs. He stopped dead when he saw Sarah. The color drained from his face. Sarah, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead. Logan's voice cut across the warehouse like a blade. Or just gone. Which were you hoping for, Julian? Julian's eyes darted between them, calculating, searching for an exit that didn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Logan pulled out his tablet again. Then let's refresh your memory. He played the recording. Julian's voice filled the vast space, each word condemning. Needs to believe the Genovs family is coming for his wife and kid. Make him paranoid. Make him push her away. That's fabricated, Julian said quickly. Too quickly. Audio can be faked. Can bank transfers be faked? Logan projected images onto the warehouse wall using a portable projector. Account numbers. Transaction dates. Amounts that made Sarah's stomach turn. $500,000 from Bratva sources. Payment for services rendered. The service being destroying your own cousin's family. Jimmy moved forward. His expression was beyond rage. It was something colder, more absolute. Tell me it's not true. Julian's shoulders sagged. For a moment, Sarah almost felt sorry for him. Almost. You chose her. Julian's voice was accusatory, pointing at Sarah. You chose her over the family, over tradition, over everything we built. She is my family. She's a weakness. Julian's composure shattered. Our empire doesn't need a woman making you soft. Doesn't need a baby compromising your decisions. You were supposed to be King Jimmy, not some domesticated fool playing house. Jimmy lunged. Logan moved to intercept, but it was Sarah's voice that stopped everything. No. Jimmy, not like this. She stepped forward, 8 months pregnant, exhausted beyond measure, betrayed by her husband and his family. But her voice was steady, strong. Julian faces legal consequences. We file charges. Let him explain his treason to federal authorities. Let him tell them about the Bratva conspiracy. She turned to Jimmy. And you gave up on us the moment things got hard. Love isn't just protection, it's trust. You didn't trust me to stand beside you. You didn't trust our love to be stronger than fear. Jimmy's face crumpled. Sarah, I'm not finished. She looked between the two men, her husband and his rival. Logan saved my life tonight when my own husband abandoned me. You've been fighting a war based on lies. And Julian's betrayal, as horrible as it is, proves something. The real enemies aren't across the table. They're the ones who turn family against family, who profit from our conflicts. She took a breath, her hand on her belly where their daughter kicked and turned. What if this ends tonight? What if the Castellari and Genav's families stop trying to destroy each other and start protecting against the real threats? What if Julian's betrayal actually creates something better? The warehouse was silent except for the wind howling outside. Logan spoke first. You're proposing an alliance. I'm proposing we stop being predictable. Stop being easy targets. Sarah looked at Jimmy. Unless you'd rather keep fighting the wrong war while men like Julian destroy everything from the inside. And just when she thought she understood the full scope of the betrayal, the truth was about to hit even harder. The silence in the warehouse stretched like a wire pulled too tight, ready to snap. Julian stood alone now, his soldiers having quietly shifted their stance to show they weren't backing his play. In their world, betrayal had consequences more absolute than death. You can't do this, Julian said, his voice hollow. Jimmy, we're blood. We were family. Jimmy's words were funeral bells. You stopped being my blood the moment you put a price on my wife and child. Logan pulled out his phone, already dialing. I have friends in the FBI. They'll be very interested in Bratva connections to local organized crime. Julian will get his federal attention. No. Julian's voice cracked. Please. I can fix this. I can. You can't fix trying to kill my daughter, Sarah said quietly. The word hung in the air. Daughter. Not just baby, not just heir. A real person. A little girl who would have a name and a laugh and a future, if she survived the mess Julian had created. Jimmy moved to Sarah's side. Not touching her, not yet, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. The alliance, he said slowly. What would that look like? Logan considered. Territory sharing. Joint security protocols. Combined resources against external threats like the Bratva. And old debts. Jimmy's jaw tightened. Your brother was killed in a territory dispute 5 years ago. Logan's voice was measured, controlled. A dispute that Julian likely engineered to keep our families at each other's throats. I've spent 5 years wanting revenge, Jimmy. But revenge against the wrong man is just more wasted life. He extended his hand. Jimmy stared at it like it might turn into a serpent. Sarah could see the war playing out behind his eyes. Years of hatred and mistrust battling against logic, against survival, against the tiny life growing inside her that deserved better than a war built on lies. Sarah placed her hand over Jimmy's. Gently. Just a touch. Sometimes, she whispered, the strongest thing isn't holding on to the past. It's letting go. Jimmy took Logan's hand. The shake was brief, formal, but the sound of it echoed through the warehouse like a gunshot. Decades of rivalry ended in a moment. There's one more thing, Sarah said. She turned to Jimmy, and her voice was steel wrapped in silk. 45% of everything legitimate, the restaurants, the real estate holdings, the investments. In my name. Not a trust. Not a protected account. My name. Jimmy blinked. Sarah. I won't be protected like property anymore. I won't be the wife locked in the safe house while men make decisions about my life. I'm your partner, Jimmy. Your equal. Or I'm nothing. The warehouse held its breath. Jimmy nodded slowly. 45%. Your name. And couples counseling, Sarah added. Logan actually laughed at that. A short, surprised bark of sound. Even mob bosses need therapy? Especially mob bosses, Sarah said firmly. Trust me, the issues run deep. 3 weeks later, Sarah sat in the study of the Gold Coast brownstone she'd claimed as her own, separate from the penthouse, separate from Jimmy, but not divorced. Not yet. Maybe never. But definitely not together the way they'd been. The legal documents transferring assets to her name sat in neat stacks on the mahogany desk. 45% of the Castellari legitimate empire. Restaurants across 3 states. Commercial real estate. Investment portfolios. All hers. Not community property. Not marriage assets. Hers. The power was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. A knock on the door. Come in, Sarah called. Logan entered, carrying a briefcase and looking amused. Most pregnant women in their 3rd trimester rest. You're building an empire. I'm protecting my daughter. Sarah gestured to a chair. What did you find? Logan opened the briefcase, revealing files that made Sarah's previous stacks look quaint. Julian wasn't working alone. 3 other Castellari soldiers were on the Bratva payroll. I've got names, account numbers, communication logs. Are they contained? They've been offered a choice. Flip and testify against Julian and the Bratva, or face both federal charges and family justice. They're choosing wisely. Sarah studied the files, her mind working through implications and strategy. She'd discovered something in the past 3 weeks. She was good at this. Really good. All those years standing beside Jimmy, observing how the empire worked, learning the patterns and power structures. She'd been absorbing knowledge without realizing it. And the Bratva's next move? Defensive. They didn't expect the alliance. They're pulling back from Chicago, consolidating elsewhere. Logan leaned back. You've disrupted decades of established territory disputes. The other families are watching. Some are interested in similar arrangements. Sarah's hand moved to her belly, feeling the now familiar kicks and movements. Her daughter, active and strong despite everything. We're rewriting the rules. You're rewriting the rules, Logan corrected. This was your idea. A pause. Then Sarah asked the question that had been nagging at her. Why did you really help me that night? The truth. Logan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice held something Sarah rarely heard from men in their world, genuine emotion. Because 15 years ago, I was young and stupid and paranoid. I believed lies someone told me about my wife. I pushed her away, thought I was protecting her. His eyes were distant, lost in old pain. She died in a car accident 2 weeks later. No conspiracy, no attack. Just a drunk driver and bad timing. And I never got to apologize. Never got to tell her she was right and I was wrong. He focused on Sarah. When I saw you in that storm, pregnant and abandoned because your husband believed lies about protecting you, I saw a chance to do something right. To save someone that mattered to someone else the way my wife mattered to me. Sarah felt tears building but refused to let them fall. Thank you. Thank me by being smarter than I was. By not letting pride destroy what you have. 5 months passed like seasons turning. Jimmy didn't move back into Sarah's brownstone. She didn't move back to the penthouse. Instead, they orbited each other carefully, like planets learning a new dance. But Jimmy showed up. Every single day. He came to the couples therapy sessions with Dr. Patricia Chen, a no-nonsense therapist who'd worked with mob families before and had exactly 0 patience for macho posturing. He sat through conversations about trust and control and partnership that clearly made him want to crawl out of his skin. But he stayed. He came to Sarah's doctor appointments, sitting beside her during ultrasounds, his hand carefully holding hers when she allowed it. He watched their daughter on the screen with an expression of wonder and terror that would have been funny if it weren't so heartbreaking. He sent flowers. Not expensive arrangements designed to impress, but simple bouquets of the wildflowers Sarah loved. With notes that started stiff and formal but gradually became more honest. More raw. I'm sorry. I'm learning. Please don't give up on us. Sarah read each note, filed them away, and tried to sort through the wreckage of her feelings. Love and hurt tangled together like vines choking a garden. Forgiveness wasn't a switch she could flip. It was a process, slow and painful and uncertain. But she was trying. The alliance held. The Castellari and Genov's families operated with a cooperation that shocked Chicago's underworld. Joint operations ran smoothly. Territory disputes evaporated. Profits soared. Other families started tentatively reaching out, exploring their own alliances. Sarah had triggered a revolution without meaning to. She also discovered she had a talent for the legitimate side of the business. The restaurants, the real estate, the investments. She understood them in ways that surprised her. She attended meetings, made decisions, earned respect from hard men who'd never respected anyone in their lives. Logan became an unlikely friend. He'd stop by the brownstone for coffee, discuss business, share old stories that made Sarah understand the world she'd married into. He told her about his wife, about his regrets, about the man he'd been and the man he was trying to become. We're all works in progress, he said one afternoon, watching snow fall outside Sarah's study window. The trick is not giving up on the work. Sarah nodded, one hand on her belly where the baby kicked. Even when the work is hard? Especially then. December came again. Snow fell over Chicago in thick, lazy flakes that transformed the city into something softer, quieter. And Sarah went into labor. The contractions started during another therapy session. Dr. Chen calmly called for an ambulance while Jimmy turned white as paper, his carefully controlled composure shattering into pure panic. It's okay, Sarah said, breathing through the pain. It's normal. It's just another contraction. Stronger. Time. The hospital, Jimmy said stupidly. We need to get to the hospital. That's what the ambulance is for, Dr. Chen said dryly. The labor was long, difficult. 19 hours of pain and fear and moments where Sarah was convinced her body was trying to kill her. But Jimmy stayed beside her the entire time. Held her hand when she needed it. Stepped back when she demanded space. Whispered encouragement when she screamed that she hated him, hated this, and hated everything. And at 3:47 a.m., during a snowstorm that reminded Sarah of another terrible night, Sophia Marie Castellari entered the world screaming her fury and her beauty. Jimmy held their daughter for the first time, and Sarah saw something break open inside him. Tears she'd never witnessed before streamed down his face, splashing onto Sophia's red, furious little face. "I'm sorry," he whispered, to the baby, to Sarah, to himself. "For everything. I'll spend my life proving I've changed." Sarah, exhausted beyond measure, reached out and touched his face. "You already are." 3 months later, Sarah stood at the window of the Brownstones' nursery, watching snow fall over Chicago. Sophia slept in her crib behind her, making the soft snuffling sounds that never failed to make Sarah's heart ache with love. Jimmy sat in the rocking chair, also watching the baby. He'd been spending more nights at the brownstone lately. Not in Sarah's bed, that line hadn't been crossed again yet, but in the guest room, close enough to help with midnight feedings and diaper changes. "I read your proposal," Sarah said quietly, not turning from the window. "The one about merging operations completely. And it's good. Smart. It'll maximize efficiency across both families." She paused. "But I want changes. More legitimate business acquisitions. Less of the other stuff. The other stuff keeps us powerful. The other stuff keeps us criminal." Sarah turned to face him. "I want Sophia to have choices, Jimmy. To grow up knowing her family has power but doesn't have to use it to hurt people." Jimmy was quiet for a long moment. "That's a big shift." "Then we shift big." Sarah moved to the crib, looking down at their sleeping daughter. Everything that happened, Julian's betrayal, Logan's help, all of it, it showed me that the old ways are failing. The old wars, the old hatreds. They make us weaker, not stronger. "You sound like a revolutionary." "Maybe I am." Sarah smiled slightly. "Someone has to be." Jimmy stood, moved to join her beside the crib. They stood together in the soft glow of the nightlight, watching Sophia dream. "I meant what I said," Jimmy said quietly. "About proving I've changed. About earning back your trust." "I know. Does that mean?" "It means we keep working. Keep trying." Sarah looked up at him. "Love isn't just the feeling, Jimmy. It's the work. The daily choice to show up and be better. To trust and be trustworthy. To partner instead of possess." "When did you get so wise?" "When I almost died in a blizzard carrying your child." Sarah's voice was dry. "Trauma is an excellent teacher." Jimmy flinched. "I'll regret that night for the rest of my life." "Good." Sarah reached out, took his hand. "Use that regret. Let it make you better." Sophia stirred, made a sound like a tiny, angry cat. They both moved instinctively, checking, soothing. She settled back into sleep. "We're doing okay," Sarah whispered. "All 3 of us." "Yeah." Jimmy's voice held wonder. "We are." Outside, snow continued to fall over Chicago. But inside the brownstone, in the warm glow of the nursery, a family was being rebuilt. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and trying and alive. Sometimes the coldest betrayal leads to the warmest redemption. Sometimes the rival becomes family when blood relatives prove false. And sometimes love is stronger than any empire. What would you have done in Sarah's place? Could you have forgiven the unforgivable? Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and hit subscribe for more stories of love, betrayal, and second chances. Because everyone deserves a story that reminds them, even in the coldest winter, hearts can thaw.